This is weird talking, making this video because I have about like 970 subscribers, but based off of the view count of the videos, none of y'all watching my videos, right? Which leads me to believing that a good chunk of these videos are subscribers are like bots or something, or people that subscribe to my channel for a video way back when, but didn't like the rest of my content, so they ran away, which is fine. So I'm expecting this video to go nowhere. I mean, absolutely nowhere. But just in case, and just for the future, I did kind of want to make an announcement that I think for the foreseeable future, I'm going to really, really pull back on my podcast that I used to do, right? For the few of you that do know, I have a podcast called the Crew Philosopher Podcast that I do. And, people make the joke that, we have to have people put the podcast mics down. Everyone does a podcast, and that is true. Now, in my defense, I've been podcasting well before most of your favorite podcasters. Like, I was podcasting before it was cool, podcasting before everyone and their mama had a podcast. But now everyone in their mama has a podcast, and so this is a terrible thing, right? So when people make the joke about put the podcast mics down, I think I finally understand why they say that. And you may be someone that has a podcast, or you're currently like making videos on YouTube, and you feel maybe like how I've been feeling the past couple of weeks. And I kind of wanted to just record this video to just let you know it's okay to stop. And I say that because when I first got into podcasting, right, my first podcast was called the Keenism Podcast, right, named after my middle name, Keenan. And basically, it was a podcast that I started to kind of talk about women in relationships, even though I was like a young man fresh out of, I think I was still in college or fresh out of college, and didn't have much experience with, as far as dating and relationships, but had a lot of thoughts about relationships and dating and women. And really, I was inspired to do the show because my favorite comedian, Patrice O'Neal, he had a show back on, I think it was Sirius XM, called Black Phillip, where he used to go on the show and give like relationship advice. I thought the show was like smart. It was dope. Like, Patrice is my favorite comedian in general. So, but like he did a pretty good program. Like, separate from my admiration of the comedian, like as a program, the Black Phillip show, and it was only like 10 episodes, 13 actually, 13 episodes, and it was great. I still re-listen to it every now and then, like go through all of the episodes just to hear, his voice, his wisdom, and I wanted to do the same. And in hindsight, as I look back on it, I was really kind of taking things that I heard from people like him and some other people as well, Corey Holcomb, putting like my spin on it and then kind of regurgitating certain things. But I didn't really have the life experience to actually say some of these things. And, it's embarrassing now looking at it as a 31-year-old man. But like, Patrice's experience came from dating, or struggling to date a bunch of women. He had a girlfriend named Vaughn at the time that he did a Black Phillip show. He was very open about flying to Brazil and, sleeping with escorts and prostitutes. And so that wasn't the life that I had at that point in time at 21, 22, 23 years old when I did the show. And it's no mystery that eventually, as I was doing the show, I kind of felt like I was being constrained because, kind of just talking about relationships and dating, I was like, okay, this is good for like 3 or 4 months, but now what? Right? Like, okay, and there were things happening in politics, things on the topic of like race and things like that I really, really wanted to discuss and talk about, but it didn't fit into the show. And so naturally, I would change the show, say, hey, this is like a social commentary show, and it opened up the window for me to talk about anything I wanted to talk about, which made the show harder to like promote and to describe to people, but it made me feel more at home with, okay, I can just come here for like an hour, 2 hours, and literally just like talk about whatever I want to talk about, navigating a variety of different issues, whether that's, something that happened with politics, something in entertainment that I feel like I can have a commentary on. It was great. And I did that show from my living room / bedroom for I think like 4 years. And then I think right up until COVID, had a variety of co-hosts, shout out to my guy Parker, who I did it with, my guy Tony, Jules, my guy Jules. Like, I had genuine fun too. Like, genuinely had a great time, a good time. COVID happened. And then I decided to end that podcast and start a solo show called The Crew Philosopher Show, which was hard for me because I truly think I do my best work when I have a co-host. Like even now, as I'm talking, I feel like I'm talking too much, and like my juices just it gets flowing differently when I have a co-host. But it's kind of hard finding a co-host among your friends because you usually fall into two different problems. Either you have a friend that's really good behind the mic, but they're not that consistent or dedicated, or you find a friend that's really dedicated and consistent, but they ain't the greatest behind the mic. So, eventually I would do the show with my friend Sabrina, and it was dope. Did like a couple of shows, and then of course she eventually sent me that text or that text or that phone call, FaceTime, saying, hey, I kind of can't do it anymore. I got work and everything. And so from there, I went back to doing a solo. Eventually, I reached out to my old high school friend named Shannon, and then me and Shannon did the podcast for like a year and change. And I feel like if me and Shannon had kept doing the show, we would have blown up because we were like you can't fake chemistry. Like you can't do it. You can't fake chemistry. And the chemistry between me and Shannon, because me and her actually knew each other. I've known Shannon since I was a 13-year-old boy. Went to high school with Shannon. Briefly, well, I'm not gonna say that, but yeah, like she knows me very, very well. I know Shannon pretty good. I think she hides parts of herself, to me sometimes, and she would put up with my shenanigans. She would strongly disagree with me, scream at me sometimes, but it was great because I think there was like a comfort that I had that I know, okay, Shannon's always gonna be here, right? Then eventually that stopped. Shannon's, was too busy to do two podcasts. She claims that she has a podcast that she does that's like on like nerd anime tech stuff, and then she did my podcast secondary, and she claimed that it was difficult for her to keep up between that and also her other podcast and also her job. But I think somewhere deep down I got too hot for Shannon. Like Shannon is a liberal and I'm not. And some of the conversations would get very, very, I used to make fun of people that used to get abortions, and I used to make certain crude jokes, strong opinions about men being in leadership that I felt like, men need to be in leadership positions because I don't like the state of the world, how black women are like horrible leaders, right? So, and I'm sure, again, I don't think Shannon lied to me. I just think it was more than just time. I think I was kind of hard to stand next to, which I totally understand. And so then from her, I kind of, did the podcast with, Brianna, and that was dope for a couple of shows, but chemistry was not as good as it was with Shannon. Then Monica, as well. Again, I thought me and her were getting into a pretty good groove, but not as good as Shannon and, not as consistent. But also, I kind of landed where I landed today, which is I'm not sure I have much to really say anymore. And that's a really, really weird place for me to be in because I'm someone who, like, when people ask me, what do I want to be? Like, what do I hope to accomplish? I do want to be like a very serious social commentator in the future. Like, I want to record documentaries. I want to have a very popular online presence where my voice is listened to, where I'm able to kind of contribute and put my hand on the scale and influence thought. That's what I want. But if I'm being honest right now, at 31 years old, I'm not sure I'm sure about many things anymore. And so it puts you in a position where you're like, okay, I got to do this podcast every week. What am I talking about? Because the things that I feel strongly about or that I have a definitive opinion on, that is getting smaller and smaller and smaller by the day. Just to give you some things that I go back and forth in my mind about, right? Government. What type of government do I want? Do I want a government that's a government that takes care of people, that provides some social programs? Or do I want a government that has less taxes, allow more people to fail, which would mean more people will suffer, but it is what it is. Do I want that? As a black person, am I someone who believes in kind of a nation state? Or do I believe that America can never truly be my home country because I was, I'm the descendant of an enslaved person? Now, I feel like I've actually reached a conclusion on that point there. But for weeks, months, really, I would struggle with that question. And so when you kind of have these back and forths that you have in your mind, where you almost feel like indecisive sometimes, how can you sit behind a microphone and pretend like you have any sort of like concrete, hard opinion? Well, you kind of don't. And so where I'm at now in my life is I have significantly more questions than I do strong opinions and answers on a variety of topics. And I'm reading a lot more. I'm reading a lot of philosophy books. I'm reading a lot of just nonfiction. I've started to read fiction. I'm researching more. And so I think at 30, in my 30s, I'm actually in my school of life phase, in a sense. Right now, maybe most people do that in their 20s, and then in their 30s they're more confident. But for me, I feel like I had a more definitive of an opinion back in my 20s. Though I admit that some of that stuff was probably not my own original thought, but I still felt more self-assured in certain respects than I do now as a man in his 30s. But I feel like me being less sure now is not because I lack conviction, more so that I'm so intellectually curious that I want to explore all sides of a topic before I really, okay, this is how I feel, right? So again, I feel today that I am a black person who is an American and that I belong to America. I am a citizen of America. America is my country. America is the country that I will defend. I'm not a Pan-Africanist. Salute to the Africans and the Caribbeans, all that stuff. I don't believe in this whole, hey, all black people got to be unified together and what's in the best interest of the African in some country in Africa, right? The Ghanaian or the Nigerian is in the interest of me, the black American in America. I don't feel that way. Like, I've gotten a lot more pro-America the last couple of years, and I feel pretty confident that I'm planting my flag here. This is kind of where I'm staying for the foreseeable future. Because I really thought about it and sat and meditated, thought about it while I'm walking, right? And I'm like, I feel strongly about this. The trans stuff. I feel strongly that while I will defend a trans person's right to exist, while I would defend a trans person's right to walk around in the street and not be harassed or beaten or threatened or feel unsafe in a real way, not this imaginary way, I do believe that trans people, especially trans women, are a separate category. I don't believe that trans women are women. I don't believe that women is like a category or like a costume you could put on. And you notice I say women because we don't even do this or have these conversations with men, because if you're a trans man, you kind of know you get in when you fit in, my dude. Like, that's kind of how these things go. We only have these really like big philosophical conversations around womanhood. And I'm not buying it. I don't believe that stuff. There's men and there are women. You could be a trans woman and you could be a trans man, but a trans woman, you are a man that is presenting as a woman. You are a trans man, you are a woman that is presenting as a man. You don't become a man, you don't become a woman simply because you feel like you are or you want to be one. That's not how this works. And I believe that these categories that we have need to be defended. I believe men and women are different. Right? We are more alike than we are different, but where we are different, especially in those tail ends of the extremes, those differences matter, and they definitely matter as we kind of talk about larger implications about the things that men vote for, the things that women vote for, and these things have actual consequences, right? So I'm actually becoming more solid in some beliefs, right? All of those positions that I just named, these are positions that I have landed on after having either the opposite position previously or kind of a lukewarm case where I was like, I don't know. And so because I'm more unsure than I am sure, I just don't think, I can pull off an hour podcast week after week after week on a variety of topics. Like, I would rather discuss those topics, maybe in like a video, kind of asking questions on all types of sides, saying, hey, what about this? Hey, what about this? I think this, but I think this. Instead, I don't think the avenue of the podcast would be a place, at least the one that I have now, that I can have that type of conversation after years of being this person that was so sure and so definitive on certain things. Like, I rewatch certain clips that I have on TikTok and YouTube Shorts. Like, I might not even believe this anymore. Do I still believe this? I mean, maybe, probably not. So it's okay to stop. Like, it really is. I think the people that make the whole, hey, we need to put the like when people make comments about, podcast mics need to be more expensive and stuff. They might be coming from like a rude place sometimes or something like that. But I really do think it's okay if you kind of started to do something in this social commentary space, but you feel like, you know what, I have a lot more learning to do, or I don't really feel strongly enough about these issues to really kind of fake the funk. to take a step back and say, yeah, I'm kind of out of this. Nothing wrong with that. And anyone telling you that there's something wrong with that, you should kind of say, well, why? Right? Like, I mean, Socrates' whole thing, and I'm not comparing me to Socrates. No, so calm down. I'm just saying, Socrates' whole thing was like, questioning everything, through questioning and kind of talking to people, asking more questions, answering more questions that are being asked of you. Through doing that over and over and over again, you'll kind of get closer to how you actually feel, what you actually believe on certain things. And that's what I'm hoping to go. So I plan on doing more videos. Now that I really just sit in front of this webcam and talk, it's a lot less work than setting up the camera and, importing the stuff like this is more my bag. And again, these videos won't be put out consistently because I don't have strong feelings consistently about things. I'll be walking sometimes and I have a thought, I write it down and say, ooh, that'll make a good idea for a video. By the time I get home to sit down and actually record a video, I'm like, how much do I care about that? Right? So I don't expect that I'll ever be like a consistent poster as far as the commentary videos. Now I will be consistent with my my gaming videos because I am enjoying those, making those. I really am. But yeah, expect the content on this channel to be a lot more me kind of exploring things holistically, asking questions. Now I might lean more to a side than the other, but I plan to do a lot more of kind of offering the other perspective, and maybe hopefully if this channel grows and I actually get, subscribers that actually comment and engage with the videos, we can actually have back and forths in the comments discussing these things. I'm trying to remember not to look at myself in this thing and to look at me here. So apologies if my eyes go down there. Is second nature. Maybe I just so that's the goal. It's where I'm at right now, and I just would feel cheap and like I'm presenting a false version of myself if I pretended like I have these super strong feelings and I was very a strong constitution when I really don't. I'm at a point in my life now where I'll read one philosopher one day and be like, man, he's making good points, and I'll read another philosopher that has the exact different opinion, like, man, I don't know. Right? Like I'm just now learning about the utility of the principle of utility, right? Like literally like last week I started reading about the principle of utility and what that means and how basically a philosopher, I'm blanking on his name, believes that we're all governed by pain and pleasure. Like all the laws that you like that are around you and everything are about pain and pleasure. These dictate the way that we act, that we behave, the type of laws that we end up passing, the type of laws that we end up repelling. All about pain versus pleasure, and that the principle of utility is how can you construct a society that increases the maximum levels of happiness among the largest group of people. That's how you should judge every action, every law, every regulation that's passed. Is this increasing happiness amongst the largest group of people, or is it decreasing the harm that is inflicted on the largest number of people? Right, and so I'm gonna wrap up because I'm rambling. It's 20 minutes long. This video is way too long, But yeah, so the questioning philosopher is probably more like it. Less cruel because I don't have the opinions as much, but a lot more questions. So again, don't be ashamed if you have to step back like I'm stepping back. I think we need to be honest, especially as men, when we are. You know what? I'm not as sure as I used to be about certain things. I need to kind of remove myself from. I know it feels like you have to offer your opinion on every single topic all the time, but I promise you, don't let social media and all of these apps like X or Instagram or Threads make you feel, YouTube, that you have to have an opinion, you have to have a comment. It's okay to be like, I feel many things. To sit with those things, to talk about the many things that you feel without offering any type of real conclusion. So that's my video for today. And, hopefully as we proceed with this channel, this will continue to be a place that is actually a net positive for the internet and a space full of noise. Until next time, deuces.